Disorder used to be one of the most important mechanics for Anomaly, so why does it feel like it's suddenly being replaced with Abloom? And why is it actually important that Abloom might be better for the health of the game? Since the introduction of Vivian, the mechanic of Abloom has been added to Zenless Zone Zero since 1.7. A quick overview of the mechanic of Abloom. Certain agents' combat skills can trigger Abloom upon hitting an enemy that is suffering an attribute anomaly. When triggered, Abloom damage deals an additional instance of attribute anomaly damage, scaling off the original anomaly's damage. Since Vivian dropped in 1.7, this mechanic has been mostly exclusive to her and helped a lot of anomaly agents throughout the dry patches to fulfill this anomaly playstyle. Since she was the only anomaly agent, there wasn't a lot of experimentation or many characters that had this playstyle. More importantly, since she was the only agent that really had the Abloom mechanic, a lot of people were not interested in this mechanic. The main mechanic of Anomaly up until 1.7 has been Disorder. Applying another type of attribute anomaly to an enemy that's already been inflicted with one overrides the original and causes a Disorder effect. The Disorder effect is calculated based on the original anomaly, dealing additional damage in accumulating days. This has been the main playstyle for Anomaly since Vivian, and now it seems like we're getting more Abloom agents that are focusing on instances of anomaly damage rather than timing other anomalies together to deal more damage over time. Disorder is more of a bursty type of playstyle since it takes two anomaly agents, or one in that case, to specifically time your greatest amount of damage within a fight. It requires specific setups and timing of buffs and abilities from both agents or just the agent you're using to get the maximum amount of damage. As for Abloom, since it's relatively still an unexplored mechanic other than the buffs and Vivian, it's more consistent and easier to trigger depending on how the character works. Since an attribute anomaly is triggered, in order to trigger Abloom, you need to do a mechanic specific to that agent. A couple of months ago, I talked about how Disorder was feeling like it's falling off just due to how Season 2 bosses were integrated into the game and how we've been getting a lot of anti-anomaly content. I'm still going to use that for the crux of this, I guess, discussion, that Disorder is still feel like it's falling off. We recently just had Vesper, a new boss that's been added to Zenless Zone Zero since the release of Suna and Aria. And this is another case where Disorder is not the greatest against this boss. Since Vesper moves around a lot and quite frequently, it's harder to time your Disorders in a timely manner. And usually in these Disorder based teams, there is no stunner. And with a stunner, you're able to actually execute your damage without being interrupted or your attacks missing. However, the crux of these Disorder teams, unless you're specifically Alice or Nagi, need another anomaly agent to fulfill the Disorder, since it needs two different anomalies to activate, which again I said in my previous video about the fall of Disorder. The bosses of Season 2, and maybe even in the future, are not allowing Disorder to get its full strength again. Introducing Aria, and probably more anomaly agents in the future with this Abloom mechanic. Aria is very simple in gameplay and design. Either her fourth basic hit generates a glow stack, an EX special attack can generate more glow stacks, her ultimate triggering an ether veil gives her more of these glow stacks. When the enemy is under an attribute anomaly, you can hold her basic attack and she does it Abloom. It takes 2 stacks to get this Abloom. And it's very simple, very easy, and it's something that a player can easily use without needing to maximize damage. I wanted to talk about Aria before, but I think now is the perfect time since Nangguang is coming out. And even in Nangguang's kit, Abloom is helping her to deal more damage in the team. With this mechanic, newer players or even veteran players are easily able to access damage without needing to do specific setups or timings to get the most amount of damage. In Disorder based teams, Usually that consists of 2 anomaly. As I said before, you need to set up in order to get your big bursts amount of damage. So why does it matter that Abloom seems to be rising in a more popular style for the anomaly archetype? There are several different things I think are the reason why. One, as I said before, it's a lot easier to play. When a new player or someone who wants to get into the anomaly class or archetype wants to play anomaly, a lot of them do not like the disorder playstyle or feel like the disorder playstyle is a little bit daunting to achieve or to play. Remember, this is a gacha game after all. Abloom is a lot more simpler to understand. Proc an anomaly, do whatever mechanic it is to get the most damage, and you do your damage. The second thing is, it encourages consistent action. With disorder, it's a lot more time setting up for bigger amounts of damage, while Abloom, you're more integrated into the combat. My third point is that Abloom is a lot more easier to balance. Disorder as a mechanic, it builds additional days and it builds more decibels. Abloom doesn't really do both, so you're not stunning as fast, but also it's a lot more controlled for the devs to make more powerful kits without having to worry about disorder, if disorder was the main factor. Abloom is simply a mechanic that just does like an instance of anomaly damage that doesn't affect other parts of the system of Zenless Zone Zero. Like I said, disorder does days and it builds decibels whenever you trigger a disorder. Leading into that, it's easier for them to create kits that are more interesting. Most of the anomaly kits were kind of just existing characters doing things. Yangi herself is probably the one suffering from this just as much as Jane is, because all she has is really disorder. And like I said, the game is shifting away from disorder for more Abloom focused damage. When designing Aria and Vivian, it allows them to be more free with their options. Well, more so Aria. Now, if a player wanted to play an anomaly agent with like a stunner, they can, because their kit is designed around that. Most of the anomaly agents, other than like Miyabi and Alice, have to still use other anomaly agents or are still locked down by them. And the last reason is, it's easier for Hoyo to sell more agents. Like, if we think about this for a second, would most people not pull Nongguang if she wasn't just an anomaly stunner? No, she also does days and damage herself with the blue mechanic. Since Aria is now out and we're probably getting more anomaly agents that have different sort of abilities, they might want different agents. Who knows, we might get an anomaly agent that wants a defense agent to do certain specific things, and it benefits them, and also it generates more money for Hoyo if people want to get that agent. Why I think Abloom is actually really healthy for the game, it's because it's not tied to an old mechanic that was really strong in the beginning of the game. We're almost at our 2nd anniversary, I believe, and the devs have been doing a lot to expand the game in a more, I want to say, interesting and engaging way. I think it's really interesting how they're taking the game in a different direction, where it does matter about your character, but also matters how you play your character into a specific matchup. Abloom is just another way for people who want to play Anomaly to play Anomaly. Because I think Yojimbo Blade said it best.
It means that Anomaly teams can operate on an axis that isn't just Disorder Turbo.
Anomaly has just been really a Disorder circus. I think them shifting to Abloom was probably the best thing that they've done for the class. But what do you think? Do you think Abloom is better? Or are we losing something important to Zenless Zone Zero? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And I'm Zenagi, and I'm signing off. A special thanks to these Disorder members: